Finding it a hassle to ship your parcel overseas? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't need to travel to the drop-off point or could avoid filling out lengthy consignment notes? With DHL On The Go, you can now send parcels or documents easily. Tell us your shipping details and let our chatbot guide you the rest of the way. Make payment through a secure payment gateway. Arrange a pickup at your preferred location. All of this is done via WhatsApp from your home, office, or anywhere, at any time. Scan the QR code or WhatsApp us now. Ready, chat, go! With DHL On The Go. Finding it a hassle to ship your parcel overseas? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't need to travel to the drop-off point or could avoid filling out lengthy consignment notes? With DHL on the go, you can now send parcels or documents easily. Tell us your shipping details and let our chatbot guide you the rest of the way. Make payment through a secure payment gateway. Arrange a pickup at your preferred location. All of this is done via WhatsApp from your home, office, or anywhere, at any time. Scan the QR code or WhatsApp us now. Ready, chat, go! With DHL on the go.
Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in and welcome back to the Digital X Data 2020 live virtual conference. We hope you have enjoyed the Business 2021 Power Panel and the Retail track earlier this morning. If this is your first session and whether you are currently watching this on WebEx, Facebook, YouTube or LinkedIn, thank you very much for joining us. Once again, my name is Myra from Star Media Group's award-winning Rage Investigative Journalism team, and I am your host for this 4-day live virtual conference. For those who have just joined us, I'm excited to share with you that we are running a special daily prize draw at this program. We have a total of 24 prizes to be given away, and you can stand a chance to win any of these 3 exciting prizes at each of the 8 sessions. We have the Philips Bluetooth wireless headphones, the Skull Candy wireless headphones, and the Honor Band 5 Sports Edition. All you need to do is stay with us till the end of each session and you will stand a chance to win these exciting prizes. We will be announcing today's winners tomorrow morning. Just a few housekeeping matters before we begin. Please be patient if you experience any technical or internet glitches. This is a live online event and everyone dials in from different internet bandwidths and devices. For WebEx participants, your microphone and video camera are turned off by default. Feel free to chat with our events crew directly if you need any assistance, and you can also email us at events@thestar.com.my. Lastly, and most importantly, please engage, learn, and enjoy. All right, to kick off this afternoon session, we would like to play you the opening power panel that happened earlier this morning. The power panel discussed the state of businesses in 2021. and leveraging on digital technologies, as collaborations across industries are at an all-time high. It was participated by a powerful lineup of guest speakers: Catherine Lian, Managing Director of IBM Malaysia; Datuk Johan Idris, Managing Partner of KPMG Malaysia; Daniel Bernbach, CEO and member of the board of the Malaysian-German Chamber of Commerce, and moderated by Jagdev, Business Editor of Star Media Group. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the replay of Gearing Towards Businesses 2021.
I'm Jagdev from the Star Media Group, and our panelists, our panel members have already been introduced. There's Catherine from IBM, Dr. Johan from KPMG, and to my left is Daniel from the Malaysian German Chamber of Commerce. It's a very interesting cross-section of people that we have for our audience to tune in and listen to the insights that they're about to give us. You've got Catherine with AI and machines. You've got Daniel that deals with technical skills, and you've got Dr. Johan that it's very much more in the business knowledge, intelligence in terms of what KPMG does in its consulting roles. And you've got me as a writer and as a speaker right now. So one thing that we will never forget 2020 is it's that it's been an interesting year, and I presume each of us has a little perspective of what the year has meant for each of us individually and for the businesses that we represent. I'll start, I suppose, with the members of our panel who are at home right now and joining us online. I'll start with the lady in the house. Catherine, if you can give us a perspective of what 2020 has meant for you, and more importantly for the company they represent, also what it means for changes that what we are experiencing now will mean into 2021 and beyond.
Hi, good morning. Jagdeep, Dr.
Yes.
Johan and Daniel, thank you all. It's really a pleasure to be part of the panelists today. Since the COVID-19 pandemic has struck the world, and more importantly, what it actually meant for Malaysia since the first lockdown of MCO period on the 18th of March 2020, all businesses have actually changed. What do I mean by changed? The normal has become a new normal, and it is actually a very, very trying times for all of us out there. All businesses right now must be resilient and also agile. Now, whether we are responding to the changes in the economy, to the buyer behavior, to the distribution networks, to the consumer taste, businesses are becoming more digital and dynamic. In Malaysia, with the current situation, in our opinion, the businesses of any sizes across industries are required to transform how they operate and to stay competitive. We see a myriad of partnerships and the ways that we are working. In the context, IBM believes that there are two things leaders in Malaysia needs to think about to ensure that they realize the radical agility needed for future recovery and resilience. And with this, we have been partnering with our government agencies, the government industries, and also enterprises to really work through the economy and the society at large. We believe that the sustainable benefit and efficient of business processes has to actually be driven through technology, largely artificial intelligence and cloud. Beyond greater efficiency is really a help to reinvent the business throughout Malaysia, throughout the world.
Dr. Johan, if you have a few words.
Thank you, Jagdeep, and panelists. 2020, wow, is a year like no other. No one would expect that we're going to have this thing virtually. I'm sure nobody will expect that, work from home or flexible working arrangement is a new norm. It has struck everyone by surprise. And one thing's for sure is that, for everyone to survive, everybody needs to adapt. And the real adaptation is digital. And this basically, the 2020 have actually, when people say, have accelerated a lot of things digitally. It has changed the minds of the CEO. It has to change the minds of the leadership to say that in order for you to maintain your relevance, in order for you to reach out to your customers, if you are offline, then there is no online. There's survival. It's a matter of life and death. And maybe from a personal level, when the MCO was struck, I was basically taken by surprise. I have literally, and everybody have 24 hours to get things ready. There's no playbook for anyone. You just got to go there and get it ready. But good thing is that, a lot of things in terms of getting ourselves digital enabled has already taken place a couple of years. The way how we do our work, the way how we increase our broadband, the way how we reach out to customers. We have myriad of customers, but their digital adoption is slightly different because one thing's for sure when I see in the Malaysian market, and this is very, very much really real life experience. Our labors are cheap. For them to convert this digital transformation, they're going to ask, what's in for me? How does it impact to my bottom line? Do I need to do it now? Can I do it later? So there are myriads of things. How much cost? And some of them are not comfortable to change. Because why? Because maybe they are financially constrained. They need to take a look at the business. Because you want to change something digital, you got to look at it from a wholesome, from the entire value chain, from the start to the end. What are the things that you need to do, and how you're going to do it, and how you're going to reach your customer? I think so. These are all new things to everyone. Every day is a learning experience, including myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Adil. Daniel, do you have any insight that you want to share with the audience out there?
Yeah, thank you, Jack, and welcome to everybody, and a good morning from my side. Yes, of course, I fully agree with what my panelists have said, Catherine and Dr. Johan as well. And what I feel I could add to that is what we just discussed earlier, that it shows exactly how important it is to be qualified and able to adjust and to learn and to adapt and to change. And it is exactly circling around the ability of every person, every human being that is affected by this change and by the whole process of Industrial Revolution 4.0, as it is called, like the digitalization of our world. It shows two things you have to be able to follow. Otherwise, you will be left behind. So it puts a lot of spotlight on our abilities to adjust and our qualifications to learn and to understand where the world is heading. What is my market doing? What is my competitor doing? What is my colleague in the team doing? What is my boss expecting of me? And all that all together somehow comes to the question and of my personal abilities. The second thing I would like to add is it also shows what a digitalized world does not do, because it somehow separates the black from the white, the light from the dark. So it is showing it here, yes, digitalized world or digital communication, production, deliveries, whatever, can do things easier, maybe more efficient, less time consuming, less resources consuming, like compared to the old world. But it also just clearly shows what it's not able to do, and that is the level of personal interaction. That is also dealing with even mental problems that we see in the workforce right now. So also the pressure that it puts on everybody's personality and soul and the inner self. I think we have to deal with that, and we will find out what we can substitute with digital tools and what we cannot substitute, and where personal physical presence is still required and will be required for the future. So I think it is quite an interesting learning curve we have been going through in 2020, but I think it's not over yet. We are in the midst of it, and we should not all put all stakes into the digital solutions. There is also still relevance of the analog, traditional, old worldly ways of doing things.
With that, we've heard the opening briefs and the quick takes from our panelists on what they think of the subject that we're going to discuss, and some of the questions that I will be raising. But at this moment, I would like to invite members of the audience who are now currently tuned in, listening to our conversation, and having heard what our three esteemed members have already briefly put forward. If you have any questions to share, please do forward it, and I will read it out for our panelists to answer. With that, I will get the session started with a few questions touching on the points that have been raised. I know Daniel had talked about some things that will never go out of style. I mean, there is always going to be room for skills. That's always going to be important. And the pandemic has shown us two things. I was just having a conversation with him about it earlier. We all love to eat, and we all couldn't wait. Maybe not me, to get our hair cut. So some things won't change at all. But I think what this whole pandemic has done is it has shown us what the future can look like in a very accelerated way. That's the way I look at it. I mean, we've heard about cloud and AI. We have heard about the importance of accelerating some digital or online presence, and like what Daniel said, the skills are still going to be prevalent and important regardless of where or whatever stage of industrialization or transformation that any country or person is going through. But with that, I would like to ask a very broad question. Are Malaysian companies really ready for this? And have they really taken stock of what's in store if they are not? I'll leave it up to whoever would like to answer this question first, and I'll follow up if anybody else has a thought on that. Catherine, if you would like to go ahead.
Right. Thank you, Jagdeep. This question is very relevant. Are we all ready, right, for digital transformation? Just like what Daniel has rightly pointed out, the biggest readiness in any organization is about reskilling, and it's about upskilling. Now, organizations right now should really think about adopting a holistic, multimodal skills development to help employees develop both behavioral and also technical skills in the new normal. Now, what I just want to share with you is that the digital transformation is inevitable. The cloud and the AI technology will transform the future of tomorrow. However, the companies have to understand that the cost reinvestment and prioritization has to actually work both ways, both in technology and also in people skills. Now, in Malaysia, I just want to share with you that IBM have the opportunity to launch a program called Pathway in Technology, or we call it PTech, together in partnership with MOE, Ministry of Education, and MDEC to address the digital skills shortage in the country. The PTech is actually designed to break the cycle of inequity in education and to address the skills gaps of labor force by linking education and workforce development. Now, this is actually a readiness of our workforce in 4 to 5 years down the road. What happens now? Within the next couple of years, IBM aspire to continue to partner with government industries, agencies, and also enterprise governments to make sure that the reskillings and the upskillings of the employees are always at the head of the prioritization. Come digital transformation is the upskilling of the people that they need to understand through where technology will move them forward. Without that, the resiliency will actually be slower of a pace, and making sure that with the adoption of technology comes the need to understand where technology will bring forth the education. Now, it is a milestone and it's a journey, and we believe that ecosystem partnership will be substantial in making sure that the Malaysia companies, be it SMEs, industries, and enterprises, will be ready for the future of tomorrow. Thank you.
Welcome. Dato', I mean, KPMG is a consultant, accountant, got lots of clients who are companies themselves. You see them every day, you can assess their readiness. If I'm just doing a dipstick kind of test, how ready are we?
Well, I'll take my dig stick and check it out, and the temperature is not that good. So okay, I'll bucket them into three group of companies. Those are there, those who are going to get there, and those who are not there yet. Okay. These are three basket of companies. Going to put them in this bucket, and maybe I'll take a step back, Dave, and do a reflection, a self-reflection. So, this digitalization and what it means to us. So, a self-reflection, and this is my own experience and our company experience in KPMG. So we had I'm telling a story. We had a partners meeting right about 4 years ago in Putrajaya. Basically sitting down there, we know IR 4.0 is coming. We're gonna ask our leadership, and we're just saying that, hey guys, we are leaders of our organization. What's gonna impact our organization with IR 4.0 coming in? Because we smell it. What are the business that's gonna be impacted the most? And what are we gonna do about it? How do we maintain our relevance? How do we maintain our presence? What is our competitor doing? So as a result of that, 4 years ago, then we had a brainstorming. We have a list to say that, hey guys, this is real. We got communication with our global network to say that this business has been disrupted. Clients are looking at ways to get and do things more efficiently, with quality and value for money, and doing within the region, because every country has a different economics of scale, different costs. How are they going to do it? And you see Malaysia, they have shared service center. And why they have it there? Because it's about how you look at your supply chain. So we look at our business to say that, okay, this business is going to affect it. So what are we going to do? So in the firm, we've invented a group of people. We invested talent, multi-year, multi-million dollars exercise to build digital platform for ourselves, because we cannot go out and tell the client to say that you got to be digitally ready when we ourselves are not digitally ready. And proof to that is that these are a couple of things that we have invested, looking at a way how we automate things, looking at a way how we reach out to clients, looking at a way of how we do complex things more simple with technology, minimize mistake, increase experience. And like any technology that we adopt, there are teething issues, there are behavioral issues, there are skills gap. And what Catherine mentioned, behavior is very, very important. When you talk about digitalization and when you talk about digital transformation, I must say the most critical part of it is your behavior transformation. Your mindset must be there to say that I will want to change. Then you need to include with the skill set. And companies need to provide that relevant skill sets, not to all, because some of them are using the technology, some of them are building the technology. So there are two different people they got to look at. And basically through that is a journey whereby you get people to get into it and take that experience there and back to the companies that we have here. Some of them which got support, the multinationals, I mean the likes of IBM, which has great supports within the network of what's happening in China, what's happening in US, their technology adoption. We can see their progress is much, much more. They're much more further ahead. The GLCs have invested a little bit on this, but the biggest business, I mean, that we have in fact in Malaysia is the SMEs. Who's going to help the SMEs? That represents 70% of Malaysian GDP. How are they going to adopt this digital adoption, for them to survive? So these are very real things for them to survive. They need to do and these baby steps. The first baby steps on all this digital adoption is to make sure that their offline is all online. They need to get in touch with the customers, making sure that this MCO thing that you cannot reach out to customers, you're able to sell your products. So that's why you can see. But I would agree with my other fellow speakers. There are certain things that you can do online. There are certain things you not need to do the traditional way. I'm the old school. I like the traditional way. when I engage with people, and I engage with Catherine, Catherine, by the way, is we are in the same building, although I didn't see Catherine for more than a year because she's working from home. I'm sometimes working from home, but I need a face-to-face. We are just human. Humans are social animal. We need to socialize. We cannot be just staying at home. So they need to have a balance. But coming back on the digitalization strategy, there are a lot that is need to be done. And it's just not digitalization. Digitalization is an enabler for you to improve your process, to get your process ready, and maybe just a little bit back on what we are doing right now. How are we going to do our work if we are not engaged on the digitalized manner? So like us, when MCO started, we still can do our work because everything is on the cloud. We have invested in cloud a couple of years back, so we are reaping the benefit, the changes on it. My employees are worried because when we had an MCO, the first thing they say that, hey boss, would I get my pay? Yeah. And the first thing you say that, do I have a laptop? Because my frontline has a laptop. My back office, not all of them have a laptop. The good thing is that we have more than 150 laptops spare, so we can give it to them and they can go back home and work. And these are the things that we are looking at it. And sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. And when we find out that what works is that if you have a house of a family member of 10, it's difficult for you to work because people keep coming in the room, and you need a space for you to look at it. So I think so that is the long and short of the story I want to tell.
Okay. But you all both spoke about the changes that we, on a personal level, professional level, and on a country level, are undergoing right now. Partly brought about by the pandemic, and partly also is because of the necessity for change. But throughout all of this, Daniel and I were speaking earlier, and Dato, you touched on it. There is still going to be the relevance and need for some traditional skills that people have. The technicians, the carpenters, and then more importantly, the people who are going to install the robots that were supposed to take over our jobs. So there was always going to be somebody out there quite relevant, Daniel. I mean, you are in the Malaysian German Chamber of Commerce. Germany is one of the forefront leaders when it comes to robotics. Can you just tell us, I mean, not to pour cold water on everybody's future, why is it that there are still going to be some sort of relevance, maybe even more so, when it comes to technically proficient people that have the necessary skills to survive into the IR 4.0 age?
Yeah, I think this is, of course, touching the point that, or maybe the reason why I was invited to this panel here, because MGCC, Malaysian German Chamber of Commerce, stands for the German Dual Vocational Training Model. And the German Dual Vocational Training Model is that we are offering here for Malaysian companies is based on the German education model in Europe. And it has proven successful because throughout the last 2-3 centuries, I would say, the 4 industrial revolutions have gone through, and somehow the technology has been advanced, and it has all this advancement, all this development has been based on the skills and the basic and fundamental education that the staff, the people, the technicians, also the engineers were working with. And it is, I think, what hopefully helps Germany stay afloat in a competitive world, because we also are under high pressure from countries that are advancing fast, leapfrogging some areas where we had some years to learn. Others are just learning from us and avoiding these mistakes and all the costs and time that has been going into wrong decisions. And we have to stay competitive. And I think the only way we can do that is advancing even further and basing more on creativity, innovation, and in the resilience in disruptive times. And I think this is only possible if you have the right skill set in the educational system. So our interest in Malaysia is to really focus on this kind of abilities, of this kind of upskilling, And it's not only simply giving a person a laptop and a handphone and then letting him or her run away and go ahead. I think it is very much understanding problems and coming up with solutions, because it's not there. It's not plug and play. And even if you ask Germany, like having coined the term Industry 4.0 by Professor Kagermann on the Hanover Fair in 2011, now we are talking about Industry 5.0 already. It is not that Germany is there. It's not that German companies are all digitalized. It is not. And it should not be like that. Malaysian companies feel like, oh, we are so far behind. No, you're not, because you have, exactly like Germany, you have companies that are already on the way, that have already invested in digital production methods and distribution and communication and AI and all that. It's already happening here in Malaysia. And then you have others that are not, that are even not considering. I have just looked at a survey here. In Germany from 2018 to 2020, there was an increase of 49% to 59% of companies that are already in Industry 4.0. So it is 2 years ago only that it was below 50%. Now it's slightly higher. Of course, the other numbers are dropping, the ones that are saying we are not going into that. This has been almost 10%, and now it's close to 1 or 2%. So there is a development. It is a revolutionary process. It's not that Malaysia is not there and other countries are already done. It is like Dr. Johan said, it is both worlds are coexisting. There is traditional manufacturing and there will be digital and modern manufacturing at the same time.
All right. I think that's why it's called the economy, and at the end, the supply chain. There are various levers and levels to everything out there, from the barber to the professor. I think they all play a role, irrespective of how they all fit into the new age, so to speak. But one of the main things people are most worried about, I would tend to think from it from two perspectives. One is from the operational company perspective, is the cost of getting into IR 4.0. When you start to look at the digitization or digital transformation strategy, you're thinking big investments. Is it a big impediment, or will the payback period really prove worthy or worthwhile for any company to embark on it? And the second part of my question is that, on a personal level, for people out there, how ready should you also be, just like companies and in economy, to be IR 4.0 ready, to future-proof yourself in terms of when you want to start entering into the workforce? Does it require retraining, reskilling, etc.? Because I think unemployment is a big issue, especially amongst the youth, and people need to get ready for the new challenges ahead. So my question is on two parts. I'll throw out the first part to any one of our panelists who would like to answer from the company's perspective, and then I would like to follow up on a personal level, or from the employee or on the individual level. So I'll throw it up to, I suppose, Catherine, if you would like to take, in terms of the cost of doing it, especially if you're not going to do it.
Yeah, I think this is so relevant, especially to all the audiences who are actually representing the SME organizations today, where Dr. Johan has rightly pointed out is the anchor and the pillar of our economy growth, which 70% of the account is really where we are today, dependent on the success of how our trajectory move forward will be from our economic standpoint. Now, digital transformation is really a whole new way of looking at sustained cost reduction in the form of cost optimization. Now, it supports digital operating model. It's all about optimizing and reprioritizing the costs that we have been working on today. For example, IBM being a largest technology solutions provider in the world, we are probably one step ahead from many other companies who is trying to adopt digital transformation. And most of the companies will be asking, what is in it for me? What would be the return of investments? And looking at the readiness of the company, will it actually yield the optimization of management costs compared to where they were before. Now, there are actually two school of thoughts to look at this, because the sustained cost transformation, in IBM's opinion, starts by institutionalizing every day the tasks in a more efficient ones. Now, making the shift of robotics and automation is an example. So it is all about the replacement of certain skill sets to be more efficient, and it's also making sure that the insight source of the conceived operational capabilities and functions are being met. It has to be a win-win initiative. Now, organizations, in my opinion, can leverage new technologies and digital capabilities to offer better customer experience and growth. Now, through digital transformation, organizations can monetize their new business models and accelerate the shift to digitalize their products and design, create better business outcomes, and perhaps enhance customer relationships. And embedding this situation network is important. Now, how ready are we? How much of cost transformation it requires? It really has to actually be part of the return of investments a company should look at. In our opinion, when we digitalize the technology, it also requires upskilling. For the first 3 years, the cost optimization could be a break even, but the subsequent years, as we journey around, it will actually be a great acceleration. Now, it all really depends on how much a company will want to adopt, but the way to go forward is definitely inevitable. And with the cloud, AI, blockchain, and also IoT running through on board, many ways that we have been touching lives, many ways that we have been using of these technologies is what has been the normal for us. For example, utilization of Grab to order food, to ways to actually get into a location. It has always been part of our lives, but we have not seen how much of the cost optimization that has been put forth in terms of development of these platforms in these various companies. So we hope that at IBM, we can be able to actually partner with organizations and companies across to actually showcase on the true digital transformation that a company requires, and perhaps also value add to the knowledge base that we're going to actually transfer between what we have actually seen and the best case reference sites that we have actually been adopting across the world. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. But from a personal level, I mean, everybody's going to be scared. Can I keep my job? Can I get employed? Daniel, what do people need to do?
Yeah, I think this is, of course, there's two things. One, from the employer perspective, it is always the question of costs. Does it pay off? Is there a return on investment? When will it pay off? It's the same in Germany. I just use my statistics because I think, just to give it as a Malaysian German chamber, we are the bridge between the two countries. We look at both sides of the bridge, and we see that 73% of the Germans employers that have been asked to participate in the survey said that investment costs, or the burden of an investment into an IR 4.0 is like hindering them going into that or further into that and investing more, because they're all cautious. They are all like everybody else, like every businessman. They are considerate. And is it now the right time? Is this the right solution already? Or should I better wait and see the others make their mistakes and I then leapfrog and learn? So this is, I think, from the employer perspective. From the employee's perspective, there is this question of, would I keep my job? Will I be able to hold on? And will I be transforming with the right pace into the right direction to stay relevant and to stay productive for my employer? Just to also put a spotlight on that, in Germany, companies are employing more staff in the digital fields of production. So they are finding or creating jobs. Of course, there is also some that will somehow leave behind or will be out of work. I compare it with when the automotive industry launched in Germany in the end of the 19th century. There was people that doing horseshoes for the horses. Of course, they somehow, when everybody went into automotive, the horseshoe production was falling behind. But then they had to transfer or transform into fixing punctured tubes on tires, because tires were suddenly the issue. So this is the transformation. And looking at Malaysia's tech-savvy young population and seeing so many German companies putting their call centers and their service hubs for the Eastern region, for Asia, into Malaysia because of the languages, because of English, the ability to speak English well. Still, there is a lot of jobs being created in Malaysia because of the digitalization. So it is the question, if you can be open to learn and to go ahead, to advance, that is all you need. There will be a small niche for you if you're open. What Dato Johan said earlier, it is the mindset, the openness, the readiness, and not be stricken by fears and pushing it away and saying, no, not for me. I think that's enough, and then there will be solutions.
I think you got to take it upon yourself to make the change if you want to still remain relevant in the working environment and employment opportunities ahead of us. But Dr. Johan, I mean, I'm coming back to you to bridge both parts from the employer and employee's perspective. But on what you spoke about earlier about SMEs themselves, we are going through a pandemic. Revenues have been crushed for a lot of people. Business is down, and now you've got the need to make that change. How are SMEs going to cope? And must they cope and even take on more burden in order to survive in the years ahead, brought about by the demands of IR 4.0?
Thank you, Jagdeep. I pick up the word survive. You got to put that front center of the SMEs. If you want to survive, these are the costs that you need to incur. And maybe a change of language when you talk about cost. Every time people talk about cost, people feel that you're going to hurt more on my wallet, my pocket. Look at it as an investment. Talk investments rather than cost. Talks about survivability. So it's a matter of survival. So for some of these SMEs, that you have a smaller wallet size that you want to invest in technology, then take baby steps. You do not need to do a quantum leap. Look at what are the processes that you require for you to maintain your competitive edge. What are the right kind of technology that can deliver a slight competitive advantage over your competitors, because it will spell the difference between success and failure. Technology is not about doing things faster, better, cheaper, because everybody is doing a trend. No, it must be relevant to you. I mean, we have so much technology, but choose the technology that is relevant. And we in KPMG also had partner with Harvey Nash, survey about 4,200 IT leaders around the world under the CIO survey, that we found out that companies around the world have spent almost 15 billion US a week on technology. Just not technology to enable them to work and feel safe, but also technology to ensure that what they do, what they transact are in a place that is secure, that builds trust to their customers. Things like cybersecurity is front center, because when you want to engage with a customer and you engage with them, you send them some stuff, you want to make sure you get paid. You got to make sure that, customers' experience are there. They feel secure. They can trust you in the digital world. And because in the digital world, they have not maybe seen you operate with you, they must have some level of communication and trust to say that I'm here in Malaysia. I'm going to be, especially SME, I'm going to be here for the longest time, because customers, when buying your product or services, they want to know that later on, if I need some of my product, some clarification or services that needs to be looked at, are you still there? Are you going to be there for the product lifespan that I have? I don't want you to buy a product, then 2-3 years down the line that you're no longer there. You're closed shop. So basically, in the top of the mind of the CEO, there's a lot of things that they looked at. And when we had a CEO outlook survey around in here, we see that about 61 CEO in Asia Pacific has already agreed to put in more capital investments to buy new technology. Catherine, it'll be good business for you, Catherine. And what we say that what would take normally 3 to 4 years, as in terms of technology adoption and what you have, will take now 3 to 4 months. But they are also looking at how they are ensuring they are able to invest in the technology to make the business more resilient. So these are all these things. And when they want to invest, they also want to make sure that, hey, if I want to invest in technology, what other costs that I need to look at, basically defer and invest in the enabler to ensure that you are able to survive. Not big quantum leap, especially for SME. Just baby steps to ensure that you're okay, you're right. And every time when you do this investment, sometimes there will be success stories, that is, failure stories. So when you do invest, baby steps, see what works, what doesn't, have a trial and error, have a proof of concept. So from employees' point of view, in terms of me and my organization, I looked at recruiting close to about 350 to 400 new graduates a year. And one of the key areas that I'm looking in, I'm not just looking at accounting graduates, but what I'm looking at is those people who have a wrap around technology or technology knowledge, the things about doing programming, a little bit of programming, understanding about data analytics, understanding about the new software tools. Like people in my marketing team, they need to know things like what is active campaign, how we're going to look at customers digitally to get new things, get new insights in terms of how we're going to approach things. So it is relevant for the marketplace, and it's also the obligation for employee to make sure that everybody that you've engaged or you have staff upskill them, because some of these things, robots will take on their place, and some you can't. There's a joke around my organization, say that how you digitalize your driver. I don't believe in driverless car, even though I believe in someone there driving my car. So some things you can, some things you can't, but make sure that you place your investment in the right business, in the right process, so that you can achieve the necessary uplift in terms of your business survivability.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I hope the changes that we are going to see now does not mean the end from the mailroom to CEO path for some of the success stories that we have seen. But we have got a few questions from viewers out there. There's one that's piqued my interest. It says that how do we ensure that the laws and the policies that we have from the government's perspective are going to protect and help companies that are going into this new norm? There are other issues also that needs to be taken into perspective, whereby you got cyber scams, personal data issues. Then you've also got whether the tax codes and government policies are also relevant in terms of fostering acceleration and adoption of IR 4.0. I think we will speak to one guy who's got a Malaysia-German title to his job description in terms of person who deals quite a bit of policy, and like our two other panelists. But Daniel, can you bring us to how are you going to answer some of these questions that our readers or viewers have brought up?
Thank you, Jack. Yes, and by the way, I'm also a lawyer, so I'm also involved in this kind of a perspective. Yes, and I think this is very important. And you mentioned the cybersecurity, and I think what the governments need to do is not only a strategy where they put like incentives and maybe tax relief somewhere here and there to encourage, especially SMEs that are a bit scared because it takes a lot of money to invest in technology. But there is help from the industry, because there is suppliers from the industry that support it and make it maybe more feasible. You can keep your old machines, you just add some features to that, and then it's already working digitally. So there is help from the industry. And I think where the government, and I have been asked a few years ago by the MITI minister, Dato Mustafa Mohammed, already at that time, what should the government do? And I think what is most important for governments to support the industrial development is provide data security, data safety, and make sure that there is certain standards of data languages or late data formats, because this is absolutely necessary to be able to communicate across borders, across continents, across technologies and facilities inside the factories. But especially Germans are very sensitive to personal data and data protection. They don't want to be seeing their data floating somewhere, leaked somewhere. So that is particularly true for Germany. So the second most important reason why they are still hesitant is the data protection issues. It's not maybe so much here in Asia and Malaysia, but still I think the government and the laws and regulations have to make sure that the data of companies and people are protected. And I think that is a very high on the list of the governmental and legal duties supporting the industry.
Okay. I think we are almost coming to an end in terms of our session here, and unfortunately there are quite a few questions that have just popped up on the screen, and I do hope the organizers would be able to direct some of these questions to some of the participants, so maybe you will have the time to answer some of our viewers directly in terms of the questions they have raised. But first and foremost, and lastly, I'd like to thank everybody here that has participated in what I would say is a very thought-provoking and engaging conversation that we are going to have on the changes that we are seeing before us and are going to experience in the years ahead. And I do hope that it doesn't change all of us permanently in terms of how we interact. And I do hope there will come a time where all four of us will be in a room having the same kind of conversation in a new normal in the old kind of way. And with that, I would like to thank everybody who has tuned in. I hope that you gained some knowledge and you found that your time spent viewing this conversation, listening to what our experts had to share, was actually very fruitful to you. With that, thank you for tuning in, and thank you very much to all our participants, panelists, for engaging us today. Thank you, and have a nice day.
Hi everyone, I hope that you enjoyed the replay of that panel on gearing towards businesses in 2021. We are now entering the second thematic track of the day, the manufacturing track, which is powered by McKinsey & Company. Industry 4.0 technologies were already transforming manufacturers' operation before the pandemic. But now, adoption is diverging between the technology haves and have-nots. And to open the session, our keynote speaker will answer the key question: how will manufacturing and its supply chains look after COVID-19? Ladies and gentlemen, here is Mr. Kenneth Koh, Expert Associate Partner of the esteemed McKinsey & Company.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next session in this conference. I'd like to say I hope everyone is staying safe. I hope everyone is staying well. right? And I look forward to spending the next 30 minutes talking about this very important topic for all of us, right? Industry 4.0 and the new normal. And just as a quick introduction of myself, as Myra mentioned earlier, my name is Kenneth. I'm an expert associate partner with McKinsey, right? I've been a consultant for quite a lot of my life, but over the last 5 years, I've spent a lot of that time exclusively working with companies, both small and medium enterprises, as well as large global MNCs in the area of Industry 4.0 adoption and acceleration. And I'd love to share some of that, some of those learnings with you today, right? So we're gonna talk a little bit about why Industry 4.0 is highly relevant today. And I know you've heard a lot about this probably over the last few days, right? But I'm going to talk more about the manufacturing sector and what are some of those changes, right, that we're seeing these days. We're also going to spend some time talking about the challenges in implementation, right? And to hear more about what the way forward should look like for companies. And I'm going to start off by addressing the elephant in the room, right? And we've all heard enough about this, right? But we understand that COVID-19, right? We have two pressures here. One, to suppress the virus as soon as possible, and one, to get back to normal as soon as possible, right? And as we've seen in the news, this is not an easy journey ahead. In McKinsey, one of the things that we do is we survey global executives on a monthly basis, right? To understand how is perception changing, right? How do these global executives think that this recovery is going to happen, right? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time, I'm not going to go into too much detail over here, but what the consensus seems to be, and I think we're all well aware of this, is that recovery is going to be patchy, right? And what that means for all of us is that the disruptions that we've seen in the last 7 to 8 months of 2020, they're not going to go away overnight. A lot of these new norms, a lot of these new realities will continue on into 2021, perhaps even further beyond, right? And that, I think, makes it all the more important, all the more imperative for us to take a longer term view, right? And not just worry about the short term effects and impacts and respond accordingly. So if we take a step back, right, some of these recent challenges that we've seen in the global economy, some of these including demand uncertainty. I'm sure many of us who are here watching this session today have experienced, right, drops in demand, sudden surges in demand over the last few months, just as trends come and go. We've seen how the economy, there's a lot of worry about the recession, right, and how certain sectors, especially of the economy, are much more vulnerable than others. We've seen also how this transition towards safe distancing, towards remote working, right, how that has been such a shock to our system and a shock to the traditions that we're so used to of showing up every day at the office at 8 a.m. or showing up to work, right, and how we've now had to learn in a very short period of time how to exist with Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all of these other tools at our disposal, right? But what all of these challenges have created, right, is a need for a great reset. And nowhere, I think, is this more clear than amongst industrials or in manufacturing, right? If we're not allowed to gather people in a certain location, how are we supposed to manufacture, right? If trade flows are disrupted around the world, how are we supposed to send our products and our goods around the world, right? And so I think this has been a time of great disruption, but we've also seen it's been a time of great innovation, right? And so we see that there are perhaps four durable shifts, right, in manufacturing and supply chains that are needed. And these are steps that are already being taken by some of the industry leaders around the world, right? And let me spend a minute talking about this, right? The first is around agility and customer centricity, right? How do we put our customers at the center of our operations, right? Where we're no longer optimizing our operations around lowest cost, lowest, fastest possible turnaround and all of that, right? But to learn how to be agile in the way that we plan and schedule our operations to meet the needs of our customers, right? Around supply chain resilience, with all these challenges that we're facing around shipping lanes and airplane routes, how do we think about building out our resilience in the future, right? Some companies are thinking about nearshoring, getting more and more inventory placed closer to their manufacturing hubs to reduce the need of that future disruption. But from a digital perspective, right, how do we start thinking about end-to-end visibility of our supply chains so that not only can we respond quickly, but that we also get early warning, right, when things are about to happen? How do we make use of analytics in a way that allows us that allows us to bring a higher degree of predictability to our supply chains? The third theme, or the third reset then, is around speed and productivity, right? And as you think about how we now have to work with less resources, right, with safe distancing and remote working and all of that put together, how can we increase our own productivity to get more out of the very limited resources that we already have today? Whether this is through automation, whether this is through increasing the quality of our production, using advanced analytics, using data, right? How can we increase this productivity and this speed? And by the way, that is something that is extremely important if we are to continue to maintain our competitiveness in this day and age. And finally, a theme around eco-efficiency, right? As we start seeing more and more, especially amongst advanced economies, right? More and more regulations coming into play around regulations on carbon capture, on how green our supply chain is, right? I think this is also a theme that needs to stay close to the forefront of our minds as we think about the future. And so what I want to say here is that while a lot of companies have been forced to respond as best as they can, right? What we see is that in light of COVID-19 and all of those disruptions earlier, the industry leaders are leveraging Industry 4.0, right? We've heard many stories about how companies who were further ahead, right, in terms of their digitization journey, in terms of Industry 4.0, they were much quicker in their ability to adapt, in their ability to respond, in their ability to deal with all of these disruptions that were caused by the pandemic, right? And so what we start to see here is a little bit of a two-speed response, right? Where industry leaders are making the most out of technology, making the most out of Industry 4.0 to not only stay ahead, but to get even further ahead, right? While the rest of companies who are responding or resorting to analog levers, who are responding in a reactive manner, right? They are doing what they can to stay afloat, to survive, right? But the risk of all of this, right, in one simple sentence, is that there is a risk that the gap between industry leaders and the rest of us is going to just expand, right? And so I think there is a clear and urgent case for adoption of Industry 4.0, right? If you are someone who is thinking about this today, right? If you are a company that is struggling to get started, right? I think the best mindset to take is that there is no better time than now. There is never going to be a better time than now. There is, who knows what 2021 will hold, right? Hopefully it's not another pandemic, right? But there will be challenges and there will always be fires to fight, right? But if we look at the bigger picture and if we reflect on how some of these industry leaders, some of the big household names that you and I both know, right, and how they have responded, and we reflect against how we ourselves have responded, I think we'll see that difference there. Right, and so let me spend a minute talking about how do we look at Industry 4.0, right? And we like to describe it as Industry 4.0 being characterized by 4 foundational technologies. The first is around connectivity and data, right? Getting visibility into our operations, getting visibility into what's happening on a day-to-day basis. One step up, we have analytics and intelligence. Now that we have that data, now that we've started collecting all of that data, how can we work with that, right? And make use of new and exciting technologies in machine learning and artificial intelligence to get even more insights out of that data, right? We then have human-machine interaction, or automation for short, right? Whether these are physical robots that that are deployed on production lines, as well as also software robots, right? Robotic process automation. And finally, we have advanced engineering. And if you think about 3D printing, renewable energy, nanoparticles, some of these technologies we are just scraping the surface of today, right? And there will be a lot more development over the coming years. But if we think about all of these four different technologies then, right? These need to be applied end-to-end along our value chains, not just within the four walls of our factories of manufacturing, but these need to be extended outward as well to increase the visibility, the collaboration that we have with our suppliers, right? With our customers. As we think about product development as well, right? How can we utilize some of these advanced technologies in improving our speed to market, right? And so what I want to leave you with, right, is that Industry 4.0 should not and should definitely not be constrained within the four walls of manufacturing, but there is so much scope to think outside as well. And what we have seen in all the work that we've done in McKinsey, right, is that with the right execution, this Industry 4.0 can drive significant impact with companies. And it doesn't matter how mature they are, right? It doesn't matter whether we have started 5 years ago or we're starting today. It doesn't matter how big they are. We have seen success in Industry 4.0 for small and medium enterprises, just as well as amongst the large companies, right? And it doesn't matter what industry they're from, whether you are from manufacturing today, in services, in logistics, pretty much anything, right? This is a topic that is urgent and is applicable to you, right? And as I mentioned earlier, I think it's important that in order to keep being competitive in this new normal, in this new market, right? Companies do need to think about their own Industry 4.0 journeys and to seriously think about how to accelerate these. And so we did a survey recently amongst companies, amongst manufacturing companies globally, right? And we found that most companies believed that Industry 4.0 will increase in relevance, right? And those are some of the numbers that you see on this slide over here, right? 94% of companies found Industry 4.0 helpful in keeping operations running during the pandemic. Some of my clients that I serve in Singapore, for example, had issues with their circuit breaker and our MCO, right? With supervisors, with production managers being caught on the wrong side of the border at one particular time, right? And how am I going to manage my operations then, right? And only with the advent of technology, with remote working tools, right, were they able to continue, right? And so we also see that companies continue to be more optimistic, right, about the value of Industry 4.0 now versus last year. I think there is a very famous quote from, I think it was the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, who said that we have seen 6 years worth of Industry 4.0 we have seen 6 years worth of acceleration in just 6 months, right? And this is a theme all around the world, that Industry 4.0, not only is it relevant now, but it is more relevant now in view of this pandemic. But at the same time, right, just to expound on a point I mentioned earlier, right, about how there appears to be two speeds between what the industry leaders are doing and what most other companies are doing, right? We see that this pandemic has actually widened the gap between the haves and the have-nots, right? Where the companies who were further ahead, right, could respond a lot quicker, had more resources at their disposal, and are, as a result, forging even further ahead. Whereas for various reasons and various constraints, right, a lot of other companies who started off perhaps a little bit on the back foot are still playing catch up, right? And as I mentioned earlier, this is something that as we go along, if this trend continues, what we are going to see is only a widening gap between the industry leaders and everyone else. And to make matters perhaps a little bit more complicated, our research shows that most companies still struggle to implement Industry 4.0, right? And if I quote another survey that we do on a global, on an annual basis globally amongst manufacturing companies, we do this every year, and for the last 3 to 4 years, we have found very similar results year after year. And if I focus your attention on the chart on this page for a second, right? The blue bars, 28% of companies are saying, right, that I have found success in Industry 4.0. I have gone beyond piloting and trialing. I am actually working on scaling this up now across my various locations, my various companies, my various businesses, my various factories. What about the rest of the companies, the remaining 72%, right? We find that for 72% of companies, a lot of them have started, right? It's not that they're doing nothing. They have started. They are working on pilots. They're working on trials, right? But they are caught in something that we call a pilot trap, which is that a lot of trial and error, right? We invest in something, we try something out, doesn't seem to work. We go back to the drawing board. We try it again. And this whole vicious cycle of pilot, fail, pilot, fail, pilot, fail, and maybe at some point succeed, right? Takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of resources that I think a lot of companies are not able to afford, right? And so when we asked companies, what are the 3 biggest challenges that you face when you think about Industry 4.0? Because let's face it, right? You've spent the last 4 days hearing about how Industry 4.0 is important and how there's so much value at stake, right? I think everyone is aware that by this point, everyone is aware that there is value in this. So why don't we forge ahead, right? What are the challenges that hold us back? And if you take a look at those charts then on this page, right? A lack of funding because of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? There is a lack of good business cases out there, if I were to phrase this differently, right? And the second point, limited understanding of the technology and vendor landscape. If I were to paraphrase that, where do I start, right? Do I start with robotics? Do I start with automation? Do I start with AI, machine learning? With all of these technical jargon out there, where do I start, right? And finally, and very importantly, a lack of people, skills, and knowledge. Right? We hear very, very often from companies that there is resistance from the ground whenever we're trying to do something new, implementing new technology, bringing new solutions to the forefront. Right? There is resistance from people. People just don't like change, right? But also, people sometimes are not equipped with those knowledges, with the knowledge that is required to effectively act in the new roles and the new expectations that are that we want of them. And so, if I take a step back over here, right, there is a global lighthouse network that is administered by the World Economic Forum, right? And what this essentially is if you're a company that believes that you've succeeded in your Industry 4.0 journey, you can make an application to the World Economic Forum. They will come and do some certification, some audits, right? And if they agree with you, you get on this list, right? And right now there are 54 of these sites or factories around the world that have achieved this prestigious accreditation, right? And quite a number of them are in our backyard, in our region, right? And you know, the first thing that you may probably think about when you look at this list is, oh, all of these are really large companies, right? BMW, Alibaba, they have plenty of resources, they have plenty of time, they have plenty of people. They have the capacity to move ahead, right? But I would challenge that assumption, because not all the 54 companies on this list are companies that are large, right? And there are SME scale companies on this list as well. Fast Radius, as an example, number 3 on the list, is a company that when they started their Industry 4.0 journey had 70 employees, right? They were an SME at that point. And so what I want you to take away from this is that it is possible, regardless of your size, regardless of what sector you're in, to successfully transform at scale. But perhaps the right question to ask is how, right? How were these companies so successful, right? What did they do well that 72% of other companies were not able to, right? What did they do right? What is the formula for success? And I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about this, right? And I just as a quick aside, I think if you have any questions about the presentation, all in the past as well as now, feel free to make use of the chat box, and we'll get around to these questions in just a moment, right? But I want to spend a few minutes talking about this formula for success, or this recipe for success, because this is important, right? You see, there are three elements that you see on this page: business, technology, and organization. And in a lot of the work that we do, and I've personally spent the last year probably talking to more than 300 companies in the region. And the most common pitfall that we see in Industry 4.0 is that companies think of this as purely a technology project, right? And what does that mean, right? That means they spend an undue amount of time thinking about what's the right solution, what's the best technology out there. Is this something that, is this a reputable solution, right? And what happens when we start off thinking only about the technology, right? Too many times we find that companies spend a lot of time, spend a lot of money even, investing in this. And 6 months down the line, they realize that we are not actually seeing the kind of benefits, the kind of results that we were hoping to. Some of the comments we've heard from, that I've personally heard from company CEOs has been that, you know, everyone talks about how Industry 4.0 is supposed to get me 30, 40, 50% productivity improvement. I tried it, I'm getting 2%. And I've also personally seen a lot of companies who have invested in fancy hardware, fancy technology, right? Put hundreds of sensors around their production lines, only to find 6 months later that all of these sensors are still wrapped in plastic, right, not being used. And when we ask them why, they say, well, you know, my people don't really know how to make use of this. They gave it a shot, didn't really work out. I don't trust this solution. I don't trust this technology, right? And so clearly, I think there are a lot of challenges. But what then is the right sequence? Coming back around to what did those 54 lighthouse companies, what did they get right? And I think it's important that we sequence this correctly, right? And first and foremost, Industry 4.0, just like any other transformation, needs to start from the business. And here, in a simple manner of speaking, right, it's about being able to focus our resources on the problems that really matter, right? And I'd like to expound on this a little bit, right? As business owners, as managers, as company leaders, on a day-to-day basis, I am fairly sure you have 20,000 fires to fight, right? And these 20,000 fires, COVID-19 or no COVID-19, you will still have 20,000 fires to fight, right? But if we take a step away from that, if we cut out the noise, right, you will probably find that a lot of these problems that we spend our time on, that we spend our resources on, they are important, right? But in the grand scheme of things, they don't move the needle, right? But for every company, there's going to be 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, right, key areas that if we were to specifically focus on them, narrow down, right, and prioritize our time and resources on these critical problems, that if we can get even a small improvement in any of these areas, it's going to drive a significant improvement in our financials, right? And the challenge here in the business side of this framework is about how do we cut out the noise and how we really get down to what moves the needle. For a manufacturing company, right, it's probably going to be along the lines of how do I increase my throughput? How do I increase my output with the same resources that I have? How do I reduce the amount of rejects and quality rejects that I'm throwing away? For a logistics company, perhaps it's how do I make the best use of my assets, whether it is my warehouse or my trucks, right? How do I reduce the amount of inventory that I have to hold? For a services company, perhaps it is about how do I get the most out of my people, right? And I would challenge you to think about what really moves the needle for your operations, for your business. And once you're able to get down to that focus, then we can start thinking about the technology, right? And here I think the mindset that is important in technology is that, again, it's not about big names or fancy technologies. What's more important is you need something that works specifically for you, right? That is uniquely customized to you and to your particular problems, right? And the analogy here is sort of like when you're buying a suit, right? You can walk into a fancy shop and buy something for a few $1,000s off the shelf. It probably won't look as good as a suit that costs half the price that is tailor-made for you, right? But wherever you start, right, it's important that you start thinking of it as a base that is scalable, right? So that as you continue your Industry 4.0 and your digitalization journey over the next few years, right, you continue to build on this base. And as a quick aside on this, if I think back about those 54 lighthouses, right, today, BMW, as an example, probably has plants which are fully automated, lights off factories, in fact. But that's not where they started, right? Where a lot of those companies actually started was in a lot more simple, in a lot more basic applications of technology, right? Thinking about connecting their processes, connecting their machines, right? In order to start collecting data and getting visibility into what's actually happening on a day-by-day basis and where I'm losing productivity, that was where they started, right? And if any of you are thinking about, well, where do I start my journey? A good first answer is always there, right? Think about connectivity, think about visibility. And then we move on to the third element, which is around organization, or people for short, right? And I think we've heard many of the other panelists earlier talking about this, right? And I will summarize this into two areas. One is about mindsets, and the second is about capabilities. Right? When we think about mindsets, right, I think this is something that is unique to every organization, right? What is the composition of my workforce today? Are they full of highly educated engineers, or are they full of production operators, blue-collar workers, right? Are they of an average age of 20 years old or an average age of 50 years old? And all of these different variations and actually influence the kind of organizational mindset that is there, right? And so it is important, yes, it is important for a CEO, for you as business leaders to set the tone from the top, but it's also important how you communicate it to your respective organizations, right? Because the way you would speak to an engineer and the way that you would communicate to an operator is different, right? And let's recognize that from the beginning, right? And I think being thoughtful about how we manage this change is going to be important to address the mindsets within our organization. And at the end of the day, if we want to change someone's mindset, right, what we need to capture are their hearts, right? So that's how I would address mindset. And finally, when we think about capabilities and skills, right, a good example that I like to share is in a lot of first conversations that I have with companies, they talk about, "Ooh, can you tell me about advanced analytics? Can you tell me about machine learning?" And the first question that I respond to this company is, "Can you tell me, do your people know how to use Microsoft Excel?" Right? I say that as a bit of a joke, of course. Right? I don't mean it that way, but it's actually true, right? In a lot of ways, we need to learn how to crawl before we learn how to walk, before we learn how to run, right? And there is a sequence to these things. And as we think about how technology comes in, changes the way that we operate, right? Changes the way that we work, there will be differences in our jobs and the roles that we expect from our people. So thinking ahead, planning ahead in order to prepare for those changes and to provide our workforce with the appropriate skills for those roles is going to be important. And so as a final word, if I step back, right, we talked about all of these three as individual elements, but in reality, this is something that we need to consider all three of these elements in parallel if we want to make this a success, right? And that is what defines, and this is what defines the success, the people who succeed versus the people who struggle with the pilot trap, right? So I'm happy to take a pause right here, right, and to take any questions that you may have.
Hi, so thank you so much, Kenneth. Just before we address some questions from the audience, I would like to thank you for, I think, giving a very good framework of IR 4.0. I think throughout the conference, we've had a lot of specific knowledge, but I think the roadmap that you laid out was both fair as well as apt. One thing that you said that was that captured my attention was this idea of the pilot trap.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, after looking at the, this way, yeah. So after looking at these three steps, I kind of understand a little bit more about why people might end up in the pilot trap because they don't know how exactly to implement those three things. But I think perhaps maybe in the interest of COVID-19, a lot of people have lost their jobs, right? Understandably because of resource allocation. Companies need to tighten their belts. But when it comes to adopting this this technology during this time, because you don't want the SMEs to end up far behind and cause inequality in the market. But how does if you want to already invest in IR 4.0 technology, right? Is there a way to balance that with human cost, meaning to balance out the human cost? Just a little bit about that. I'm just wondering if you have any data, any studies regarding that issue.
Sure. Thank you, Myra. Thanks for that question. I think I'd like to make one overall response, right? And I'd like to correct a myth out there that I think is in the market, right? That a lot of people think that technology is going to come, robots are going to come and steal all of our jobs, right? And I think the reality is a little bit different, right? From all of the work that I personally have done in Industry 4.0, I found that these new technologies do not replace people, but rather they change the jobs. And it is only when the people that we have are not skilled enough, right, or not prepared enough for these changes in their roles that this turnover happens, right? And a very poignant example that I like to flash out there is that I do a lot of work with SMEs in the region, right, in Industry 4.0, and one of the very first questions that I ask them is, what are you looking for out of this, right? Why are you interested in Industry 4.0, right? And not a single time have I ever gotten a response from any company that says, I want to reduce my workforce. It is not that, right? But many of them are more concerned about, how do I stay competitive in the market? Because if the more competitive I am in the market, the more resilient I am, that I'm not subject to sudden demand drops when something like COVID-19 comes around, right? And the more resilient I am, the more flexible I am, that allows me to pivot my business according to the times, right? And that helps me to not just, I guess, grow, but also to retain my people. These are thoughts that come from CEOs of SMEs, right? And therefore, I think, coming back to your question, Myra, around how do we balance that human cost? I think it is, if I could tweak that a little bit, right? It's not just about balancing the human cost, but it's about thinking beyond just dollars and cents. When we think about Industry 4.0, right? And as we start thinking about building a business case for any kind of technology that we want to put into place, right? It's not just about, can I make more can I make more money? Can I make more, generate more sales and so on? I mean, all of that is great and all of that is good, but at the same time, it's also important as we think about the organization element, right? The people element. It's also about how do I redistribute some of this back? Because as people's roles start to change, and I recognize that I need to actually, as a business owner, invest in making sure that they're prepared for this change, right? And with these changes, the way that I manage performance in my operations is also going to be different, right? And so I would not look at it in isolation as just technology and humans, but rather that this is actually something that works a lot more hand in hand and in parallel than we actually usually think of it as.
Thank you so much for that. I think that brings up a really good point, and also I hope that that will change, the perception and the way that people think about how you're going to integrate your businesses with technology, and hopefully it will make some of you out there remember that it shouldn't happen in isolation. So we have 4 questions for you. This is a lot amount of questions, so that's good. So this is Sri from WebEx. Thank you, Sri. With regards to the data shared, are there specific to Malaysian companies? Are these values found within Malaysia or ASEAN? I guess maybe another way to phrase his question, Sri, maybe, perhaps, you can correct me later in the comment section, is how applicable is the data to the Malaysian market or the Malaysian context?
Thank you, Sri, for that question. In response, I would say that the data that we have shared is not specific to Malaysia, but it is filtered out for ASEAN. But having said that, I do want to very quickly point out that even when we account for country by country differences, we still see the same themes arising regardless of whichever country that we're looking at. And so this is not just a Malaysian or a Singaporean or a Thai problem. This is a global trend that we are seeing.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. We have another question. And this is from Josephine from WebEx as well. Do you think that all manufacturers in Malaysia can adopt this IR 4.0 easily? And is the unwillingness to change is due to the high costs?
Thank you, Josephine, for that question. I would say a little bit, I would describe this a little bit differently, right? I think the unwillingness to change is not so much due to the high costs, right? But rather due to a lot of perception out there, right? In the market around the difficulties, around the cost and benefit of adopting IR 4.0. I do think that the journey it's not straightforward, it's not easy, right? But it is important. And when it's done right, with the right kind of advice, with the right kind of support that companies get, we actually find that the business cases for Industry 4.0 can actually be extremely positive.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you said perception, because when perception becomes wide enough, it can become a perspective or an approach, right, for some business owners. So kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Thank you for your answer. We have 2 more questions. This is from Al Malik from WebEx as well. Thank you to all of you on WebEx for being so active. What are the advantages of value backwards as compared to technology forward?
Yeah, thank you, Al Malik. That's a very interesting question. I think it depends on the perspective that we're taking, right? What are we trying to solve for at the end of the day, right? If we're solving to be the most forward-looking technology company in the world, then perhaps a technology-forward approach works. But I think for the vast majority of people, for the vast majority of companies, there is a need to prove a business case. There is a need to justify whatever investments that we're taking, whether they are in technology or not, right? And it's only with this understanding or with these business cases that we can move ahead, right? And if I can just call out perhaps the fact that, earlier on I was mentioning to Josephine, I think that some of these business cases can be really positive. Personally, with a lot of the SMEs that I work with, I have not seen a single case where the cost of adoption or the business case of adoption has a payback period of more than 6 months, right? But and if you think about this holistically as a business, right, you've got a proposal in front of you as a CEO that is, I'm going to get my payback in 6 months, and I've got something else that I'm going to get my payback in 7 years. Which one would you pick up? Of course, you would pick up the 6-month one, right? And that's why I think it's important that we start thinking of this value first, right? Because at the end of the day, that also determines how much attention, how much investment, how much of our resources do we want to spend on driving this forward. And as a business, of course, we want to make sure that we're always prioritizing the highest return.
Thank you, Kenneth. And we have one last question. This is, from Josephine again. Thank you, Josephine. How does IR 4.0 relate to the operations in the production line?
Yes, thank you, Josephine. There are many ways, right, that IR 4.0 can relate to the operations on a production line. And I'll just give you a couple of examples right off the top of my head, right? If we think about a standard production line with machines and some manual processes, right? I would think about it as what constrains this, what constrains the output of this production line today. It can be anything, right? It can be breakdowns, it can be quality rejects, it can be changeovers, right? A simple Industry 4.0 application could be just using very straightforward IoT, right? Simple sensors to start monitoring the machines that we have, right? And to start giving us the right kind of insights into, well, how much time am I losing to breakdowns? How much time am I losing to changeovers? How many of my products are going out there and getting rejected, right? Quality defects and so on and so forth. And with that very simple connectivity and visibility that allows you as a business owner and a business leader to take specific actions, right? On all of the areas that we're losing productivity on, right? That data that we start getting today, we can build upon that. And in future, right, with enough of this data, right, we can go into even more advanced use cases such as predictive maintenance, condition monitoring, right? Or even using new and advanced analytical methods, right, to start conducting large-scale experiments on how we can, over time, improve the throughput and the yield that comes out of our production lines, right? I'm sorry, but there are really many different use cases in production lines. I'm happy to spend more time on this too, if allowed.
Thank you, Kenneth. And don't worry, soon you'll see him again at the panel after this. I just want to thank you so much for everything and for the speech. That was very insightful. And for those of you over there, wait up, and I will soon be that side over there to facilitate the introduction of the panel. So thank you so much for your questions. I'm really sorry if you couldn't answer all of them, but for those who did, that was a very enriching experience. So thank you all, and see you soon. Thank you again to Kenneth. It was indeed a very insightful presentation and gave a really good roadmap on how we're going to implement IR 4.0. Ladies and gentlemen, to complement and deepen the conversation around manufacturing, We are joined by a great panel lineup of industry-leading manufacturing subject matter experts and practitioners. Our first guest panelist is Mr. Raymond Lee, who is the Program Director at Fusion X Group. Raymond has in-depth expertise in the information technology, engineering, and automation industry, as well as extensive international experience. Our second guest panelist is the Group Chief Operating Officer responsible for the global operations of Mega Fortress Malaysia. Karen White's 19 years of experience and leadership has been instrumental in developing and delivering technology-driven business services and driving profitable revenue growth for Mega Fortress Malaysia. And our next guest panelist is Mr. Adam Yee, who is the President and CEO of Siemens Malaysia. Adam has been with Siemens for 17 years, specializing in the electrical and manufacturing segments, and he is concurrently the head of digital industries in Malaysia. And rejoining the panel is Kenneth from McKinsey, who will be moderating the panel discussion. If you have any questions, do not wait until the end. Please make sure that you put in your questions early so we'll have time to address all of them. So this is definitely not a panel that you want to miss, and the panel is getting ready, so please stay tuned and we'll be back in just a short while.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for this panel. I am very privileged today to be joined by three very respectable members of the industry, right? And I'm looking forward to this panel, right? Perhaps I'd like to just have a round of quick self-introduction, right, from our distinguished guests on the panel. Perhaps, Adam.
Very good afternoon. My name is Adam Yee. I'm actually the President and CEO of Siemens Malaysia Sdn Bhd. I've been with company for 17 years. Now I'm actually also responsible for digital industry, and one of the key topics that I'm driving now is actually the Industry 4.0 technology. So I'm very much looking forward for our fruitful discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen White, and I am the Group Chief Operating Officer for Mega Fortress Malaysia. We're a global group that has 25 offices worldwide. I look after the operations of the group, and currently I'm tasked amongst that to look out for the digital transformation, both in our manufacturing environment and in our global offices. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Raymond from Fusion X Malaysia. So we are a data technology company, and I'm the program director in charge of business development and also account management globally in 16 countries.
Right. Thank you. Right. And as I've said earlier, it's a pleasure to be in such esteemed company. Right. One of the things that I think we have heard quite a lot about over the last few days of this conference, right, is about the importance of Industry 4.0. And I think it's good to be joined here on the panel, both by people who deliver some of these Industry 4.0 solutions, as well as people who use some of these Industry 4.0 solutions. Perhaps just to kick things off, I'd love to speak with Karen about perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your experience, right, in your own journey in Industry 4.0. How did you decide on when to start, how to start, why to start, right?
Thank you very much, Kenneth. You know, the digital transformation for us is very interesting because we've looked at it at various approaches. Instead of not getting started, we've really thrust ourselves over the last few months into this transition phase of our evolution as a company, both in our manufacturing environment and also in the commercial side of our business. So we've really started looking at the transformation from a commercial aspect first, and we've already started laying the foundations in order for us to understand what our group business is doing and to start having predictive budgeting, predictive forecasting, AI learning within our different segmentations of the business, which is on the go as we speak. And then from a manufacturing perspective, there is no silver bullet, as we all know, when it comes to digital transformation. There is no one program or one solution which is going to fit all of your needs. We had this discussion earlier as panelists, which was very interesting. So we've really started to look at the segmentation of our business to say, what does the future look like for us and what do we want to achieve out of this? What business, what optics do we want? What is our strategic drivers in terms of our transformation? And we've started looking at sprints in our business. So those sprints really are focused on deliverables, ROIs being met within a short amount of time instead of it being an enterprise system where we work on it for 3 years and then there's a fail of it. So we've started looking at it by segmenting our business and then started operating not as a fragmented environment, but within sprints to eventually get up to our full digitalization, both manufacturing and commercial, within the next 3 years.
And perhaps just as a follow-on, Corinne, and I'd also love to hear perspectives from Adam and Raymond on this, right? But as you were thinking about this in Mega Fortress, right? What do you think was the starting point, right? When you decided that, when you decided that this needs to be a priority for the future, right? And how did you communicate that as a business, right, to your employees?
This is very interesting because, you know, there's a lot of talk about, not necessarily about the transformation only, but about digital culture. And digital culture is something which we found very, it's a very intricate part within the transformation journey because the culture of your company needs to become digital. It's not necessarily only about us, you know, as leaders looking at the journey, saying this is what we want to achieve, and then subsequently leaving it to, you know, people down the line to do. We really need to take the step as leaders to say, I am the culture. We lead this culture as a company, and as a cultural change and shift, we need to be able to guide our employees and our staff, everyone from our operators right throughout. They've all got a say in our business. So we've taken that approach as Mega Fortress. Everyone from an operator to a line leader to, you know, someone in procurement, anyone that's part of our value chain has been involved in our digital discussions. It's not about us doing it from a management level to say, well, this is what I want to achieve. It's about us looking at it from our own business to say, how can we achieve this collectively? So we've looked at it as a collective. And as I mentioned, we've looked at it as a phased approach. Where do you start? No one knows. Again, there's no, what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't get lost in it. I think this is the greatest fear factor and something which we will discuss. Don't get lost in being overwhelmed by what's out there. When it comes to transformation, start your journey. Look at the objectives. We looked at our business objectives. We said to ourselves, right, these are strategic drivers. This is where we want to see ourselves. Now, what do we need to do that? So we've started segmenting it based on our group strategic drivers. That's how we started. There is no silver bullet for this, unfortunately.
Absolutely. I think Karen has bring up a very important point over here. I think a lot of people very much focus on the digital transformation, especially on the digital side. But I would rather say that the transformation is important for the business, especially addressing for the manufacturing industry. The most important thing is you need to know what is the pain point that you need to drive. For the pain point that we need to drive, that we can bring out the outcome from the businesses. For example, like you can do the digital transformation, you can plan out your digital transformation journey to increase your productivity. For example, in the manufacturing industry especially, you also can drive for quality. You know, a lot of production, especially in the process industry, you need more consistency in terms of the output. So you need to have robotics, for example. You need to have AI. You also need to have a certain integration in terms of automation for you to support your production output. That is also will help you to increase your productivity and quality. There's another thing also you look into, for example, in the industry of food and beverage is very much driving for flexibility. The flexibility means that they can change the flavor from based on the customer demand, based on the consumer requirement. So flexibility is also important for most of the process industry as well as the discrete industry. And last but not least, just now, I think Kenneth had brought out some of the example like BMW, for example. So nowadays you see it in the automotive industry, they are also driving for the time to market. They need to shorten the time. They need to reduce the time for product design. They want to reduce the time to do prototyping because everything can be done now in virtual. So the production planning, the engineering, production design is actually quite important for the, especially for the discrete manufacturing. So I look at in that perspective, yeah. Even you talk about the MNC company, big corporation, or even for the SME industry, you need to understand about one thing is important. There are so many technologies available, so many emerging technologies available in Industry 4, but you need to know exactly what is your objective, what is relevant to you. That's what really applicable for you. So every industry, every manufacturing industry or in the process industry, they have a different requirement. They have a different process know-how, application know-how. That's one part we need to know. So that's why you see lately there are people talking about readiness assessment, into the consultation services to help you to transform how you to come out the blueprint, how you're going to derive of your digital blueprint, how you're going to transform your businesses. One thing for sure, another thing is also just now I has mentioned about this also. The most important person need to convince and also need to engage with this transformation is the owner of the company. It has to start from the leadership. Then from there, you need to engage with the people. Then after that, you also need to change your process because your process has to be leveraging the change of your transformation of your businesses. So all this is important. So another finding that we got to know about in the Malaysian research company, we also find that the skill set is also getting more and more important. So there's a lot of program running for upskilling, reskilling, and also in Siemens, what we do is also lately we also providing the skill development program for industry training for automation. We are also doing for mechatronic program. We're also doing for machine tool expert program. All those program is actually helping the industry to facilitate to the workers, to the industry skill worker, to be able to have the knowledge to adopt, to change, and to transform. I think that's one of the key elements that we need to look at.
Thanks, Adam. And I think if I were to summarize what we've heard from both Adam and from Karin earlier, right, is that, well, two things really, right? This is here and now. If you haven't started, start now, right? And also I think I want to build on a point that that Adam made, right? That there are so many different use cases out there. There are so many different applications of these technology. And perhaps I'd like to turn the time over to Raymond to actually tell us a little bit about, in your work, in your discussions with companies, right? How have you seen or how have you worked with them to help them to figure out, well, to answer the age-old question, right, of where do I start?
So to agree with what Karin and Adam has said, in terms of Industry 4.0 especially, there always needs to be top-down, unfortunately, because why the leader is always the one with the vision for the company. Most times when we speak to the middle management, we find that they don't really understand the values. To them, it's a bit more work. But that said, then it is about identifying the problem statement. So with Industry 4.0 and from where I come from in terms of analytics and advanced analytics, there is so many aspects in a company that we can look at. Do you want to increase the revenue? Do you want to increase the sales? Or is it an internal efficiency problem? Do you have HR problem? Do you have high employee churn? It can be things like that. Or maybe, for example, from a manufacturing environment, are your machines failing? Is the production line failing all the time? So we have to first identify that problem, and then from there, the management of the company need to form a very dedicated team, and that team needs to work through and make this a success. And in terms of when we look at Industry 4.0 from an analytics point of view, so what we can do is we can take all the data, we can churn it, and we can give you the patterns and insights to say that, okay, look, this is what you're going to do, this is what you need to do to increase your revenues. Or if it's IoT, for example, we'll tell them that, you know, this is your estimated time to failure, you need to change this component before you stop the whole production line. But the key part is the actionable items. That is where, you know, when you talk about just now pilot traps, right? A lot of companies are stuck into this because they spend a lot of money, they do all this. But when these results come in, they say, oh, good, you know, it's been a big reporting exercise, but we're not going to do anything about it. So we find that, you know, one of the sad reasons why companies get stuck in that trap. But across all industries where we are informed, not just manufacturing, we also see that there is growing importance for AI or intelligence. Yeah. So if I can just expand a little bit further, for example, during the COVID crisis, so we saw a big shift of consumer behavior moving to online digital purchasing, right? So that's also because of the MCO, shops were closed, and everybody just went on an online shopping spree. So a lot of manufacturers were impacted, retailers were impacted, even the wholesalers were impacted. So come June, what happened was that we had a big deluge of inquiries from all these companies saying, hey, you know, online is the way to go. I want to go online. I want to participate in the marketplace. I want to build my own online e-store, which is great. But a lot of them don't realize that just doing that alone won't bring you back to pre-COVID days. It won't bring the sales back, because there is it's a whole new ballgame. It's you know, a marketplace. When you go in there, actually, you face a lot more competition than, for example, setting up in a mall like Mid Valley. You know, in Mid Valley there could be 10 clothing stores, but online mall there are thousands, if not tens of thousands. So that's where AI marketing comes in, intelligence comes in. You know, so what we help to provide, for example, is AI pricing. So with analytics, you can say that, you know, this is the kind of price you need to sell at to stay competitive. There are things like product bundling, you know, and customer profiling, KYC. Because the beauty of online marketplace is that you have so much data, you know, compared to a physical store. And with that, you can really grow the business, you know. We talk about mainly 4 things: customer acquisition, and then conversion. So, you know, you acquire the customer, they come to your marketplace, but you need them to buy, so that's conversion, right? And then retention. So you need them to stay, and of course, repeat sales. And all of this we can enhance with our AI engines.
Thank you, Raymond. And if I can move on to a slightly different, shift the topic slightly, right? I'm actually keen to understand from the panel, right, your experience and your thoughts around. Do you think that in approaching digitalization, right, that do you see a big difference between how SMEs do it versus how larger corporates do it?
Good question from Kenneth. I think first thing, you see that most of the big, largest corporation or even the multinational company, they already have started with their digital transformation blueprint. I would say most of them, I cannot claim that everyone, but I think they know the objectives very well on their business. Because at the end of the day, they're trying to drive the business output. They want to be more competitive in the international arena. So this is what the subject matters for them. It's really important for them to make sure they are actually following the current technology that is going to benefit for their businesses. On the SME side, I think this is also a misconception that they think that this digitalization or Industry 4.0 is a very high cost implementation. And secondly, also, there are also a misunderstanding about the digital technologies, what they can really help their improvement on their business. And thirdly, also, as I mentioned again about the skill set, the skill set is completely different from the conventional way of how things is doing. So especially in the manufacturing industry, now everything you need to start up with the virtual, you need to connect the virtual to the real, you need to look into the data analysis, we need to look into the AI, and all this topic is actually new to everyone. Yeah. So even for the education industry, they are struggling now to come up something to bridge between the real on currently what is going on in the industry and to bring this knowledge to the university graduate. So this is also one of the program that we are also trying to help and also trying to bring this program to the university student, especially those who are graduate from the university. So I think in that two perspective on MNC and SME, these are the different. And probably you can say that because MNC, they have really have fun to do it, or they have their size is big enough for them to invest. Nobody will invest something where it's not going to drive any business output. If you want to invest, you want to see the return of investment. Once you determine this is the right program to run and it's going to bring a return of investments to you, then you can start to scale up. Think about what is the next step. Then you can derive the whole entire journey, the digital journey that you want to focusing on for your business. That's only in my perspective and my opinion.
Yeah. So if I may contribute on that, yeah, we too face a lot of difference when we approach large enterprises and SMEs as well. So from a data technology analytics perspective, we deal a lot with the IT teams, and these IT teams include people like data scientists, data engineers. So for large enterprises, generally they already have some form of IT team that is pretty big, and they know their goals. And like what Adam was saying, they have started their journey, but most of the time it's pretty fragmented as well. But at least they have started. They have vision, because they have very different levels of management, and they are along the way there. So for large enterprises, they have started, their team is working on it, and it's just about identifying the goals. And I think like what Karine was saying, it's about getting the whole company's buy-in, because when your middle management or the people who actually key in the data don't buy in, then become very frustrated. Why is boss doing this? Why is he making me key in all this data where I used to just write it down on paper, right? That's the digitalization journey. So with large enterprises, they are already they know where they want to go. So it's about helping them build their data models, getting their insights, and then making sure they take actions about it. Now for SMEs, unfortunately, most times they don't have an IT team. They do maybe have one or two guys, but it's to look after their PCs, their office equipment. So, and that's the, that's the part where they go, how do I start this journey? On the flip side, they are very, very agile, is what we were talking about, because there is less red tape. We can speak directly to the owners. There's no board of directors that you have to go to. So small and medium enterprises actually can move very, very, very fast. Just that, as long as they choose to start the journey. And cost is a big factor for them, because obviously they don't have as deep pockets as the large enterprises. But that's where nowadays there's a lot of technology partners, like us, and a lot of others as well, who can help them, because there are things like cloud services, subscription-based models, where it requires substantially less capex. Yeah, so they can get off the ground, it's ready to deploy. There are template-based, and a lot of these templates are based on experiences from the same industry. So, for example, whether you're in F&B, retail, the templates are there already.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Adam, for your thoughts. I mean, hearing from the both of you, right? It sounds like, again, very clearly, there are some differences between SMEs and larger enterprises, but at the same time, SMEs are actually well positioned in the sense that if they choose to do it, they can respond in a much more agile manner, right? And maybe I'd like to turn a question over to Karen, right? Would you have any advice, right, for companies who are on the fence right now, who are thinking about, hey, this sounds interesting, should I how do I get people ready for this, right? How do I jump into the water? How do I get my workforce ready for this?
I think probably one of the biggest things that I've learned in business over the many years is, digitalization for me is much like an enterprise system. And if you look at the buy-in that it took for all of our companies to get our enterprise system off the ground, some companies are still in the process of getting enterprise systems off the ground. And we're now talking about an entire new era, which is digitalization, where they still can't get ERP buy-in. Now, the digitalization is something which, we're talking about SMEs, and I think a lot of the people watching are from companies that are from SMEs, which we discussed earlier. So how do we get that started? How do we approach it? I think the first port of call for companies in the SME space, you've got so many colleagues and councils in Malaysia, and so many people are willing to share. I think the best port of call is to first go out and actually look at what's happening in the industry. It's not uncommon for us to share ideas and share information. We're all part of a greater industry and a micro and macro economy. So, if we're able to share with one another on platforms and to share our own successes and our own failures. I mean, SMEs especially, you're not going to necessarily go out and get one of the top 5 transformation specialists. You might, especially if my colleagues are both sides of me. But let's say you're a small business. Go and have a look at what's in the industry. I mean, every time I've looked at the different versionings of any system that we use, I always go out with our entire team to look at who's using what within the industry, because it's a good test case for us. You can see and you can learn from their wins and their losses and their stumbles. That for me is the first port of call. Go and see what's happening in the industry at the moment. It's not top secret. I mean, transformation and digital transformation. If you look at the first, automation. I mean, that was in the 1970s. We're not sitting on something which is a gold mine or something which is brand new. We've all got an enormous amount of experience in this. We're now starting to roll out a new dimension of that. So it's not new. Go and see what people have been using within your industry.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important approach, as you mentioned. Everybody is going for silos, and fragmented is one of the key challenge for every industry. If you're talking about sharing the information, some maybe have a concern about sharing the information across their industry. But I think one thing we can do is actually we can look into the whole entire value chain, the whole supply chain, and also the we should look into as well for the ecosystem, the whole entire ecosystem. This is what we are thinking. That's why in Singapore we launched the AMTC, focusing on additive manufacturing, that we are actually building up a center for the ecosystem for additive manufacturing for the industry. In Malaysia, we are also thinking about having such a concept or ecosystem that we can have a marketplace that the SME or the industry player can visit, can see, they can consult about the entire ecosystem, which is benefit to their implementations. I think this is also one of the key subject we need to address. The second subject is we need to address as well is actually the skill development. We need to really look into the high talent. A hybrid talent is actually important in our industry now, for time being, what we see. As you said, automation is not something new for the industry 3.0, we're talking about that. I think for industry 4.0 is getting all together. Connectivity is a key element for us to look into that. So I think for that fundamental approach, I would say that it's important everyone to understand that you need to really understand about what is really important for you to make the technology out of the benefit for your company. I think this is one of the key things that we need to address.
Yeah. And Adam, I think you talk a lot about skills and hybrid talents, right? Which I fully agree. This is something that as we prepare forward, it's not just about the business cases, it's not just about the technology, but making sure that our people and our employees and our workers are actually well equipped for some of that, some of these changes that are coming, right? And I want to ask a very practical question, right? From all across all the panelists, right? I think a very real problem that a lot of companies are going to face is that I've got a large amount of mid-career people who graduated from university or were trained in a certain field a long time ago, And now we're coming up with data science and analytics and all of these things, right? Practically, how can a company practically think about equipping their workers with some of these new skills?
So if I can take on this question. So we talk about maybe, like you say, a middle-aged employee. So I'm going to assume that this guy probably has a lot of experience. Now, in any industry, any field, experience is very important. And before data analytics came along, that's what holds the company together, experience. So for example, in a production line, and you see that something's going wrong, and you don't have data to help you, where do you go? You go to the guy who's worked the longest, and he's going to go, oh yeah, you know, this happened 10 years ago. I remember what happened. That's the problem. So experience to me is still very important. But what they don't have to be afraid of Industry 4.0 or analytics coming in. They have to understand that it is the data that will help them to make more data-driven decisions, better decisions. And for people like this, it's about blending their experience with the additional data that is coming in, and then maybe, you know, they will, because experience probably gives them, you know, 70 to 80% judgment call. You know, that's very important for people, especially in manufacturing lines. But now with Industry 4.0, and you get these data points coming in, it's going to churn the data and tell you that, you know, because I have 2,000 data points coming in, it means that this component is going to fail. And with his experience, I think it's going to improve the efficiency. So it's not, for people like that, I believe that experience is still very valuable, and they need to learn how to, you know, have that synergy with analytics to make better decisions.
I think just to touch on that, a very good point, because experience does go a very long way. And I think, you know, our people are one of our core strengths in our business. Some of the research that I've done, and also what I've seen in various companies and various sizes, is that people, and I'm middle-aged, so I get it. I do understand. But what they do is, you know, there's a lot of, we have to define what our workforce is currently doing. So do we want people who are of a certain age to understand or to do? And there's a very big difference between the two. So am I asking someone or one of my management team or one of my staff members who might be 50, 55, 60, whatever the case is, to actually program the analytics for me? Or am I asking them to understand the journey that we're going on and to give them the tools they need to understand what we're currently doing in terms of transformation? So that's a fundamental difference. And what a lot of companies are doing at the moment is they're doing on-the-job training. They're doing real-time on-the-job training, which is showcasing exactly what we're doing from a transformation perspective, and they're teaching whilst they're doing. And they're doing that specifically with age groups who were not privy to the data and information that we were. It's not that they are not capable of it. It's that they've come from a generation which wasn't as light on its feet as we are now. So, you know, on-the-job training for me is something which is very important for that generation, right through from your C-suite to your operators. Real-time on-the-job training makes an incredible difference.
Absolutely. I think, Karen, you pointed out one of the important key elements. On-job training is actually the most efficient, the most effective way of how we can bring up the skill of the individuals. One thing we did actually recently, we signed a memorandum or MOU with MIDA. We're trying to build out the high talent program. So what we do is, in this program, we are still undergoing the design stage, how we want to facilitate this high talent program. In one part, we're trying to upskill the graduates or the people, the general workers who are actually having a gap between the current skill that are available and also the conventional way of doing things. So that's one thing we do, and also we do on-job training. This on-job training is actually quite critical for everyone. At the same time, also to facilitate this high talent program, we just Siemens just start up with this Siemens Innovation and Resources Training Center in Filio Damansara 1. We haven't launched it yet, but we are trying in the midst of preparation, because what we want to do over there is actually we providing the industry training. We give the hands-on training. We also trying to facilitate to all our industry customer to transform their workers or upskill their workers according to the needs. Yeah? So go back to the fundamental, one thing is important for everyone to understand. before we embark to Industry 4, foundation is there. So the foundation, if I talk about manufacturing industry, make sure that you have upgraded your automation system, you connected your automation system for your as a connectivity of the machine. Then you are start to look into collecting the data, and from there onwards, then you look into how we can benefit out of the data analytics that you have done. So I think in all, I think it's important for everyone to understand this is an ecosystem, not only driven by one or single company. It's actually an ecosystem. It consists of the company who are in the supply chain or in the value chain, who can help out the industry to transform, to increase their capability, and also help them to really look into the perspective of the future, what we should go forward, and how we can make our company more competitive, especially the Malaysian company.
Thank you all. I think we've also been receiving quite a number of questions from the audience, and we're going to flash a few of these up for our panel to take a look at. Right, I think we have a question from Elaine. In your opinion, where is Malaysia at in IR 4.0, and how can Malaysia improve in its speed?
Okay, I think I might just step in very quickly. I think both of my colleagues here, my panelists, are probably, same as you, probably better versed in Malaysia. But just what I've seen recently is, the Malaysia has got a fantastic drive towards Industry 4.0, and there's numerous government drives from a funding perspective to really get going and get it off the ground. I do believe that there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done building the fundamentals. And if you really look at it, has Malaysia successfully done Industry 3.0? So, and I'm not saying it hasn't, but I think those things are something to be looked at. The push is there, the drive is there, but I do believe that there is still some work to be done from an Industry 4.0 perspective to get started within the manufacturing environment especially.
Yeah, so in terms of where Malaysia is in IR 4.0, so we talked about large enterprises. So unfortunately, with most countries, large enterprises form generally 5 to 8% of all the companies in the country, and the rest are all SMEs, 90%. I would say for large enterprises, they have taken that step forward, but not fully, but at least they have started the journey. The issue is with SMEs, and that is where we as industry players or the government as well, we need to, I think, put more effort in whether it's in terms of forums like this or education, and giving them the strength and confidence to embark on this journey, because I think IR 4.0 is in years, right, since this term was coined. So we as what Karen said, we do have quite a journey to go.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's still a very in the beginning stage, I would say, and I believe that many of our government agency is actually providing a lot of support and funding to the SME especially. That's a crucial one for everyone, especially in the manufacturing industry. You look at the recent report showing that the biggest contribution in terms of our GDP during the COVID MCO period is actually in the manufacturing industry, whereby in the past is actually service industry is the highest contribution for our GDP. But you look at the past 6 months after the MCO, and you look at the manufacturing industry is actually supporting our economy. So it's actually crucial for us to understand for the companies, especially on the manufacturing company, to transform and get ready for themselves to be more competitive, to stay alive, make Malaysian proud again that what we are doing. Okay, I think we have a lot of good people, skilled people. We have a lot of very strategic as a country in this region. I believe we can do better.
Sorry, just to add on to Adam's point, right? So I fully agree that the manufacturers, Malaysia has always been very, very strong regionally and internationally as well in manufacturing. And one of the things that we try to ask the manufacturers to focus on is keep doing what you're doing best, which is manufacturing, which is making your products, be it gloves or furniture or automotive. Keep doing that and work with good technology partners, that help you in the journey. Because when they diversify and they think, oh no, I'm going to go on Industry 4.0, I need to form this big team, I need to hire 10 data scientists, 50 IT people, then they lose focus. So we always ask them to, keep doing what you're doing, manufacture what you're manufacturing, work with good technology partners to help you address this and start you along the journey. And like you said, it starts in phases. We take baby steps first. And as you see the benefits and these projects come to fruition, then you may want to expand your IT department or hire more data scientists or data engineers. I think that is the low risk approach in that sense. And when you see the results, then you think that, oh, it's really worth investing in. I see the fruits of my labor.
And I think, I'll take a slightly more contrarian view to this, right? I think having been exposed quite a lot to the, especially to the SME community, a lot of times what comes out is that, I'm interested, I want to start. How is the government going to help me? I'm not just saying that this happens in Malaysia, but it happens in many other countries around the world as well, right? And one caution that at least I would like to add on is that, I do fundamentally believe that your Industry 4.0 journey needs to start on your own steam, right? If the government comes in and supports, right? If there is if there's some sort of funding that's available, fine, by all means, tap into that, right? But don't rely on it, right? Because at the end of the day, I think what you will then be doing is you will just be following the trend of what everyone else is doing, which is we're waiting for somebody to move first. And how is that a way of staying ahead and staying competitive? So I think we'll go ahead and take on another question, right? I think we have quite a few again from the audience, and perhaps we should address the question from me. MEE. Me. I'm sorry. So let me read it out. Is it a must or advisable to have a dedicated team to focus on L&D 4.0 implementation, or can we make use of the current operation teams to drive it? Any statistics to show the success rate for these two options?
Sorry, I just start on this. Yeah. So again, we receive this question a lot from our interested companies that want to do IR 4.0 or analytics. Yeah. So again, with the SMEs, they are very scared because do I have to hire new people? Then they keep asking us what CVs, and we always tell them no. We need a dedicated team for sure. It must be a dedicated team, but it can be from your current staff pool. And I would need that because there is various knowledge among all. I would need one person from procurement, one person from supply chain management, one person from production, because these people give different insights. But they can form that dedicated team from within their staff pool. Don't bother with the technology of how to build a data model, how do I ingest the data, how do I extract it, because the technology partners can do all of that. But they must be a dedicated team, and preferably that dedicated team must be led, as Adam said, either by the owner himself or at least a C-level. Then you will see results.
I think just from a use case perspective, exactly as Raymond's saying, it doesn't need to be a individual team that you bring on board. Use the people that you have within the business. They know it better. You're not asking them to be the transformation specialists. You're asking them to be part of the journey. And again, it comes back to that cultural identification of how we want to move forward. So with the right partners on board, you certainly don't need anyone specific to join the team. Only perhaps when you evolve in your transformation journey, you would bring somebody in to really spearhead the growth within the company. But in terms of that question with an L&D aspect to it, on-the-job training comes into play again. You've got the right partners, and you've got the people spearheading the projects and the transformation. They teach the people within your organization. You don't need to send them out. You don't need to spend money on that. Let the people who are, it's teach the teacher. It's it's the same concept that happens in any of those environments. Let the people within the business understand exactly what's going on, and then choose somebody who's spearheading it and let them teach the people within the business. So it doesn't actually cost you anything.
Good. Thank you. Perhaps we'll take another question then. We have one from Wesley with an interesting question. In terms of percentage, how much time should we spend identifying the problem statement or analyzing the requirements in the overall Industry 4.0 project?
Let me come into this. We did one of the exercise on one of the process industry company to do the we have this called 0.1 design manufacturing design program to do consultation and helping the company to really identify the pain point, look into the improvement, really deep dive into the implementation, how they can start up with their transformation program. The whole exercise for problem statement, identify pain point, and also describe the implementation stage. It took about 3 to 6 months time, at least minimum, because you need to understand that every industry have a different process requirement. Every industry have a different productions requirement as well. The system that they are currently using, the process, the culture they have in the company, engagement with the stakeholder is also important in that process as well. So in my opinion, yeah, based on our experience, 3 to 6 months is a minimum.
I think it's very subjective depending on how severe your problem statement is. I would split it into two different portions. Identifying the problem statement, especially if it's done by the owner or the management, the senior management, is as fast as 5 minutes. You know what the issue is with your company. I'm not making enough money. My staff are leaving me. I have 50% downtime all the time. That's your problem statement. Now then you go to the next portion, which is scoping. Then and you try to understand, okay, we know that this company has this problem statement. Let's see how to solve it. And by saying how to solve it, it means that I look at all the data sets that they have. You know, we work with their people. They are because they are the SMEs, right? They are the subject matter experts. So then we look at it and say, you know, is this where your problem is coming from? And then these are the data sets that we need to ingest and come up with advanced analytics. And that is very subjective. The scoping process itself, you know, like Adam said, it could be weeks, it could be months, but definitely not years, but you know, it could be weeks or months. So it's very subjective, but to me, the problem statement is very fast. As the owner, you know what the problem statement is already.
And also focus on the problem statement, and because you cannot do so many things at one time, yeah. Focus on those problems that immediately can give you a return. As shortest time as possible. For example, like energy saving. If based on the energy saving, every month you have a saving. Based on that return of saving of the investment, you can reinvest again for the next problem statement that you have. So that is the way how you should derive and describe the journey of your digital transformation. So it is not something that one project you can do it overnight. Yeah, not possible. It's a journey.
Yeah, don't be ambitious.
Yeah, don't be so ambitious on that.
Yeah, don't start with like 10 problem statements. Just focus on one at a time. You know,
yeah. And one at a time, and take from the return and then reinvest again. And then that will help you to accelerate your transformation.
Thank you for your perspectives. So I think that is all the time that we have, right? And I hope that you have, that everyone who is tuning in has learned quite a fair bit about from our distinguished panelists. Right, and I wish you have a good day ahead. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, we hope that you have learned a lot from the manufacturing track panel discussion as much as we did here. I just want to say that I think there were a lot of challenges that were put out, a lot of tips and tricks, a lot of things to consider, and I hope that this will be the fuel to encourage more of our businesses in the region as well as locally in order to push into IR 4.0. And I would like to thank our panelists, Kenneth, Raymond, Karen, and Adam for sharing your journeys and your perspectives with us. And thank you to all of the audience for staying with us until the end. As I've mentioned earlier, we're giving away 3 exciting prizes at each of our 8 sessions, and all you need to do is complete a short survey by scanning the QR code that is shown on your screen, or you can go to bit.ly/DXDsurvey6. And the announcement for today's winners will be on tomorrow's morning, so stay tuned and come back. The day 3 of the Digital X Data 2020 is now a wrap, but we have 2 more awesome sessions at the grand finale tomorrow. There is no better way to wrap up the conference tomorrow, but with the opening of a power panel on empowering future-ready youth. Also happening tomorrow are the People and Reach tracks that will be powered by E, Y, and Kanta respectively. We have another great lineup of HR transformation, human capital, people management, digital, media, marketing, branding, and programmatic subject matter experts and industry-leading practitioners. So I hope that you guys come back and end this 4-day conference with us together. To learn more about the conference program and our speakers profile, please do scan the QR code on the top right of your screen or go to bit.ly/DXDagenda. Please also share the Digital X Data 2020 program with your colleagues and your friends. If you need any assistance from us on this conference program, please email us at events@thestar.com.my. I'm signing out, but this page will remain live in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Remember to complete the short survey and stand a chance to win one of our 3 exciting prizes. Thank you, and see you again tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Bye.
Finding it a hassle to ship your parcel overseas? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't need to travel to the drop-off point or could avoid filling out lengthy consignment notes? With DHL on the go, you can now send parcels or documents easily. Tell us your shipping details and let our chatbot guide you the rest of the way. Make payment through a secure payment gateway. Arrange a pickup at your preferred location. All of this is done via WhatsApp from your home, office, or anywhere, at any time. Scan the QR code or WhatsApp us now. Ready, chat, go! With DHL on the go.